Hey folks, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another review. And you probably see a sort of marathon of reviews because uh, these are films, at least some of them I decided to watch on Christmas Eve. So if you see this Christmas or whatever, hope you guys are having a good holiday. Been meaning to get to these films. I know a few people have asked me about these films. So why not start with the original, Psycho. Really nice set. I mean, it's a nice looking set. It's a 2-disc. Has a good documentary on the film. Even just the presentation looks nice. Has a lot of bonus features. Has a commentary with the author of Alfred Hitchcock and the Making of Psycho. Newsreel footage. Poster. A trailer. And the Making of Psycho, which is a pretty lengthy documentary. Which makes sense. I mean, it's a film everyone always talks about. Named #1 on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Thrills list. Just one of the best horror films of all time. It gets a lot of praise. I'm not the biggest fan of this original, but I will say it's grown on me a little bit over the years. Because back in the day, I'll admit, it's still up on the channel. There were videos I did back in 2010 where I talk about how, films like this and The Exorcist and the original Night of the Living Dead, I'm not a fan of them, or I feel they're overrated and this and that. I still feel that way on the original Night of the Living Dead. I still feel that way on The Exorcist. That's why I did that review. But this one, I just say I would take those over those two. And there are classic horror films I enjoy. Halloween, Alien, Jaws, a lot of other films. But I will say Psycho has grown on me a little bit. Thanks to a nice guy, Lane618, who had sent me a few Hitchcock films. You'll see a couple of those reviews later. And I would say of some of those, I like Rear Window, this film, more than Psycho. I reviewed a film called The Birds. I could say I like that more than Psycho. Vertigo, I didn't care for. A film called The Wrong Man, I didn't like at all, to the point that I'm probably not even going to review it because I really have nothing to say because it just wasn't my cup of tea of a movie. I know he's made a lot of other films I haven't seen, like North by Northwest and Suspicious, Saboteur, and Strangers on a Train. I saw Rope, I liked that. I'll probably say I like that a bit more than this. But this one, to say it grew on me a little bit. I mean, I just say I don't hate this film anymore, but I do prefer the sequels. It's a lot better than the remake. I think this grew on me a little bit because I do like these two, Janet Leigh and Anthony Perkins. I think they do a good job, and I think Hitchcock, especially when you look at films of the day. And this type of a guy is still not a fan of the original Exorcist. I'm more of a fan of The Exorcist 3. I love the Part 3. And I'm still not a fan of the original Night of the Living Dead. I love Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. And even the remake of Dawn of the Dead. And even the remake of Night of the Living Dead I like. But the original, I respect for what it did. I know what it did. Without it, you wouldn't have anything, but I'm still not a fan. This one I can say I'm not a big fan of, but I liked okay. I mean, it's 1960, and Alfred Hitchcock, it do show that he was a good director, and this is him trying to do stuff that wasn't typical. And I can commend the guy. I give respect to the guy for that. I would say I prefer The Birds and Rear Window over this, but like those other films, The Exorcist and the original Night of the Living Dead, they just do nothing for me. This, I can say, has some nice iconic stuff that I appreciate, like the Psycho House itself and Anthony Perkins' performance and Janet Leigh. Of course, the shower scene, the score by Bernard Herrmann. I mean, to the point, this was at a time in 1960 where it was taboo to show a toilet being flushed. That was taboo. And so I appreciate that at that time what Hitchcock did, and the whole, you think this person's going to be the lead of the film, and then they die halfway through, and you're like, whoa, that would have made the audience, especially back in 1960. This is just one of those films I was never a big fan because even by the time you first see this film, it seems like you've seen it 20 times. I don't know if that made sense. Even if you've never seen the film, you feel like you've seen it 20 times because everyone always talks about Psycho. Everyone always talks about it. Everyone always mentions it. It's always on the top of the top of the top of the top of list. But at the same time, so is Alien and Jaws, and I love those films very much. But yet this film, I used to hate it. I prefer Psycho 2, which I'll talk about, and some of the other Psycho sequels. Again, I do think this is definitely better than the remake, which that was just a carbon copy, just a shitty version of this. But God, what do you talk about Psycho? I mean, of course, it's based on a book by Robert Bloch. If I understand, Norman Bates in the novel was more of a fatter, bald-headed, like me. Nothing like what Anthony Perkins would be, and I thought that was the right choice for them changing it, because Anthony Perkins, I think, he does a great job as Norman Bates in these films. He really does a great job, and he's sadly missed. He's a good actor, Anthony Perkins. And he's really what makes the film, I can watch it. But again, I would say I prefer the sequels more, without a doubt. Psycho 2 is my favorite. Psycho 2 I like a lot more than this, but I'll get into that. But still, the whole theme with the book, Robert Bloch, I think in the book, the Janet Leigh character got decapitated, while in this, of course, she just gets stabbed, because you couldn't decapitate someone in 1960. I don't know if there's that many other differences other than what Norman Bates looked like and how Janet Leigh's character got killed from the book. I know you say the book had a certain influence because of Ed Gein and those killings, and if you know anything about horror, you've heard of Ed Gein. You know about Ed Gein and what he did, and his mother and all this other stuff. I know they did that film called Hitchcock with Anthony Hopkins as Alfred Hitchcock. I haven't seen it, but I know that film exists in case people ask me. It's a hard film to talk about. What do you say about Psycho that hasn't been said? I mean, I think Janet Leigh does a fine enough job. She does a lot better than Anne Heche in the remake, and I think she does fine. She's having fun with this guy, and she seems like a decent girl, and she steals this money, and she gets very paranoid, and she makes mistakes. She gets nervous around this cop who follows her, and she wants to get this car sold in order to get another car, and you tell this is her first time doing this kind of thing, so she's very paranoid, very nervous. And ultimately gets to the Bates Motel, and you have some pretty good conversations with Anthony Perkins. I think they both play off each other well. I thought Anthony Perkins did a great job in that scene. The boy's best friend is his mother. I think Anthony Perkins does a great job. I think the scene where they're at, and you have all the birds around, and because he's into God, what the hell is that called? Taxidermy. He's into taxidermy. It's hard to talk about, because how do you... There's no reason to go through the plot, because everyone knows Psycho. You've talked years and decades about it. I mean, it's considered one of the best horror films ever made. It is one of those things, though, that when you know the film, it's like, okay, Janet Leigh's going to die, so you all this build-up. For me personally, I'm not talking about anyone else, for me personally, it's like all this build-up is pointless because she's going to die halfway through anyway. So you're just sort of, okay, she's going to die, doesn't matter what she's doing, doesn't matter what's going on with her life, she's going to die, and then she dies, and then Janet Leigh does a decent job acting. The shower scene with the editing, the Bernard Herrmann music, the music is iconic. I remember hearing this almost the same thing in Reanimator. And yes, I know the whole story behind the Reanimator thing. I do know that. But good score still. Memorable music. Memorable scene of the shower scene. Janet Leigh's fine. But again, it's like, it's not a surprise. It wasn't a surprise when I first saw it because everyone knows about it. You go into this movie, you know that Janet Leigh dies, so the shot value isn't there. When you see it from the beginning, you know nothing she does matters. You're just waiting for that scene to happen, and then it's Anthony Perkins. And really, that's the main reason why I watch is because I like Anthony Perkins in this role. I think he does a good job in all these movies. Him seeing her in the body and him, that reaction here with his mouth like this, or should I say like this, putting the car in the pond, the lake, and not going down quite all the way down, stopping for a bit, and then keep sinking in. Vera Miles is his sister, being with Janet Leigh's sort of flame, her boyfriend. And Vera Miles and the guy, especially the guy who plays the hubby, not much to them, to be honest. I could take them or leave them. That's probably one thing that I could say. The only positive I can give with the remake is the fact that those characters are played by Viggo Mortensen and Julianne Moore, and I just like those actors more than the actors in this film. But that's all I can say about the remake. But because I like Julianne Moore and Viggo Mortensen, so I'm like, I'll take those two actors over the two in this, Vera Miles and the other guy. Was it John McIntyre or something? Martin Balsam is the detective. He does fine. You have this scene where he gets cut in the face, and you have that weird shot where he goes down the stairs. It's definitely an interesting way of shooting it. Almost looks like he's floating down the stairs, and that was, the point of it. Them investigating, and the big secret that it's not Norman's mom, it's Norman Bates dressed up as his mom, and the reveal, turning the chair, there's the corpse, and the guy explaining what happened, matricide, and that guy's actually played by Robert Forster in the remake, which I guess is like, oh cool, I like Robert Forster. So I guess other than Viggo Mortensen and Julianne Moore, the fact that it's Robert Forster, those are the only three positives I can give for the remake. Because it's the same as this, only your two main roles are less talented. And I'm not even a big Anne Heche hater. I like her in certain films like Volcano and 6 Days, 7 Nights, but she didn't do a good job in that remake. And Vince Vaughn, what the fuck. But, I mean, what more can you say about this? I mean, the dialogue scene between Janet Leigh and Anthony Perkins is great. Anthony Perkins, like, I can't put my mother into an institution. What, you want me to put her in there? And she's like, well, I didn't mean anything by it. I mean, I'm not going to go with verbatim because you could go on YouTube and find the scene. And even the last scene where you could tell that mother's taking over of Norman Bates' mind, and I'm not going to swat that fly, and she wouldn't even harm a fly, and gives that look. And for a split second you see the skull, then you see the car being pulled up. It is well directed. Alfred Hitchcock knew how to direct a film. I give credit to that. The Bernard Herrmann score is an iconic score. I give credit to that. Janet Leigh, even though her character really does, it's more of a oh my god moment, but it's a moment that no one's oh my god about because everyone's heard of it. Everyone knows of it, so no matter what she does, there's no there's no finale to her character. It's just all this build up because she's gonna die. Even when you first see it, it's kind of, you feel like you're rewatching it because you feel like you've seen it before, and it kind of, all this stuff doesn't matter because she's gonna die anyway. You're just waiting for Anthony Perkins to come into the picture. That's why I can say I liked it okay just for Janet Leigh, and Anthony Perkins. As the iconic shots that everyone talks about. I mean, that is a great location, and that's a great shot. That house is a great house. Is what I'm getting at. It's one of the great houses, like the iconic houses. It's a great design of the house. Is what I was trying to say. But it's like, what more can you say about this movie that hasn't been said? I mean, there's not much more I can say about it. It is what it is. And I like it okay because of the stuff I said. But yeah, it's just, at this point, which I know sounds stupid because there's a lot of films I've seen and I can watch again and still be fine. But it's just one of those movies that, again, the first half of the film, you're just waiting for Janet Leigh to die. At least how I look at it. And then Anthony Perkins is good, but I don't really care about her sister Vera Miles. I definitely don't care about her hubby. And then they find the secret that everyone knows about. And I respect for what it did, but again, I would watch The Birds and Rear Window over this. And the Psycho sequels over this. But I like this film okay, and I respect for what it did. But that's all really I'll say about it. My thoughts on Psycho. It is what it is. I don't hate it as much as I did back in the day, but I'm not going to say I love the film either. Again, I would say I like these films more, which I'll get into. But anyway, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.